In 2025, Star Citizen made some interesting choices. It stopped releasing new features and it stopped releasing spaceship JPEGs. That first one has really bugged many in the community, myself included. Some have even stopped playing until the feature started up again, and that time has come. While it didn't become fully playable in 2025, it reached a level that allows players to experience most of what's on offer as it's built, despite what 4.5 might look like. And the company has signaled clearly that it is ready to return to feature and mechanic development in 2026, heading towards an actual release of Star Citizen 1.0 in the coming years. But these features could destabilize the game just like before, if not more. There is a lot riding on the game being playable every day now, with higher player numbers, a possible Squadron 42 release, and crucial features on the horizon. So what's different about 2026? What features might you see this year, and what is the main goal for Star Citizen over the next 12 months? Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Before we get into 2026, let's recap real quick what just happened over the last 2 years. CIG went through some pretty major restructuring around 2023 and 2024 as they acquired Returbulent, changed around their C-suite, saw the departure of some major names at the company and the rise of some other longtime employees, and the release of several key pieces of tech. These things happening at the same time weren't a coincidence. The major releases of technology over the last 2 years have resulted in the company shifting from one focused on pushing development and experimentation to a group more aligned in reaching a set target and iterating on only what's necessary. The results of this in 2025 have meant improved playability, more frequent releases, an almost year-long diversion from feature implementation, and ultimately what feels like a solid early access style foundation for a space game. There's plenty still wrong, and a lot still broken. Some basics are still missing, but 2025 was clearly a year to catch their breath, find a stable baseline of performance, and get started on the real meat and potatoes of what the game is going to be. Bringing us to 2026, the present. One major way Star Citizen is changing in 2026 has already started. After years of waiting, engineering is here, and while its first go-about is a little bit rough, it is slowly being added to all ships and balanced at the same time. It's actually still pretty incomplete. We are still missing gravity control and battery power storage, which are surely going to add more complications to balance. Regardless, expect engineering to have a big impact throughout the year. Another less expected way, though, that Star Citizen is changing in 2026 is crafting. They refuse to confirm that it is coming, but it's coming. The preview channel test was supposed to be at the end of 2025, so it's not like it's going to be more than 9 months of testing. But to accommodate this mechanic, the entire game is changing. Just some examples. The inventory needs to be updated to handle large amounts of assets, quality levels, and tier levels coming from crafting.
To support this, we also need major changes to inventory so that all of these new resources that you're collecting, you can see what you have, you can order it better, you can understand what you have in your inventory.
Resource quality is becoming a large focus in mining and crafting, as the materials you pull from your travels will grant higher level weapons, armor, ships, and components based on what you found.
All raw materials you find in the verse will have a quality rating that's generated based on some rules. The same kind of rules you heard about from the Planet Tech team yesterday.
This inherently affects scanning and exploration too. You're no longer looking for specific makeups and boulders, but specific areas of planets and moons that offer higher quality materials. And those various quality levels are going to make a difference when it comes to trading, looting, and really everything else in the game. Even the rewards we're going to receive from contracts and storylines long-term are going to be blueprints, either for items themselves, for upgrading items, or for researching new upgrades.
You can purchase commonly available blueprints, earn them from reputation and mission rewards, or even find them in loot crates. All content in our game could reward you with a blueprint.
They really haven't been subtle about all this. A lot is going to be happening in industrial gameplay given these two pillars in motion. At the end of 2026, we're going to look back on industrial game mechanics and see if they really did turn into full game loops, and if crafting was implemented to drive things forward in various ways. As mentioned before, inventory is undergoing an entire rework to include things like auto-stacking, filters, search functions, proximity looting and inventory access, stat tracking and comparisons, and more. The stuff you'd expect from a game with a looting and crafting system. I actually expect to see this pretty early in the year. Crafting is going to go into testing soon, and we basically can't handle the new item system without this. We'll also see item recovery move forward. I just covered this over on Space Tomato 2 in depth if you want more info. Just know this. With crafting comes the ability to lose our gear again, but also the ability to register it, so it's always retrievable for a cost. The best part, when you do retrieve it, the plan is to press one button and have your entire loadout equipped again. The other side of ownership is insurance. When you buy something in Star Citizen post-crafting, you'll have the option of registering it. This registration is what allows you to get it again quickly, while still allowing other scavengers, pirates, and explorers to find and use it later. You will brick an item when reclaiming it, which is still not indicative of the full final model, but this does show a move towards registering all items in the game, which is going to be another money sink. Ships, habs, armor, decorations, and more will all need to be insured at some point. This is focused on creating a non-permanent market of goods, and money sinks for players that will start developing a more dynamic economy in the next couple years. This obviously all depends on better cross-patch persistence, which is on the cards for next year, and surely a priority given players play less when they lose things every couple months. So we'll keep an eye close on this. At the end of 2026, we'll look back on ownership and see if Star Citizen makes players feel like they have the ability to keep or lose their things, and can they manage those things well? Players are already very aware of Planetech V5, an overhaul to the planet creation system that brings more detail to biomes, factoring sunlight, humidity, temperature, soil type, the local population, and more. Planets will now systemically create themselves based on the needs of the devs, using data from Earth and Luna to create more realistic geology. I do not believe we'll be seeing Castra this year, I covered that in a different video on Space Tomato 2, nor do I think CIG should push for it. Pyro is empty. Nyx is new, and Stanton is outdated. I think Planetech V5 offers a great chance to update everything to 1.0 standards. Castra will call for a new archetype of architecture, Henoism, and this is going to take time that should not be rushed for a new star system. But we've also seen mention of Starchitect, which will help to update those older star systems, and I actually would not have expected it this year. But if we do see it, I would expect the points of interest we see in the game to increase by 5-fold at least. Using libraries built on specific archetypes, this system is meant to create outposts, mining depots, refining stations, and more types of dwellings based on proximity to other services and local factions. It is an ambitious part of the project, and one that is worrying because there's already some level of repetition in the outposts of Pyro, and we would hope that they'd continue to build their libraries out so that this system doesn't exacerbate that problem. But I'll be waiting to see it before I believe it or judge it. Because along with these locations, we will still need things to do. I don't need more empty Pyro outposts. Less focused on the sandboxing locations then are the municipal works. This is the Levski Underground, offering instanced tiered dungeons of varying puzzle and combatant-based difficulties for players to explore and progress through solo or in groups. These will be some of the first instance locations in the game, buffered from the city above by a sandbox area known as the Depths, meant to offer more exploration, looting, and conflict opportunities. Finally, we have the Rock Cracker Stations, essentially Hathor V2. The Rock Cracker Stations act as another sandbox activity that any players can take at any time throughout the Keeger Belt in Nyx. You'll be able to land inside the stations, mine small nodes, and clear out obstacles to figure out a way to boot the station back up for its original purpose, to crack massive asteroids open to reveal the minerals inside. We're still not entirely clear on just how much will be inside or how it'll be presented, but they'll need to be worth the effort, and considering there's a risk of NPC combatants on the stations and players showing up getting curious at some point, there's going to be risk involved here. And don't forget the storylines in Star Citizen matter now, and it's looking like CIG is setting up for a possible UEE invasion of the Nyx system to spice things up this year, based around the terraforming of Nyx 1 and the People's Alliance of Levski wanting to make a new home for themselves. You might have the chance to side with them, Intersect, or potentially somebody else in the coming year. At the end of 2026, we'll look back on the various locations of Star Citizen and decide whether there was a meaningful increase in the places we could go, and if those places had meaningful things to do. Also, are instances helping players experience more tailor-made content? For solo players, 2026 is actually looking interesting despite the large-scale activities. I stand by my prediction that mission givers are going to make a comeback this year, providing players a more narrative and story-focused approach to missions, giving an experience more akin to a single-player adventuring game. These mission givers will also likely be instanced to allow players to more easily visit them simultaneously. These instances will be applied to other areas like the municipal works I mentioned before, the large tactical groups that are going to be taking place in space that I'll be talking about soon, and events like Siege of Orison. These instances are meant to allow for more story-focused and tailor-made gameplay scenarios that respect the fact that sometimes you just want to move through an area at your own pace and discover things for yourself. Stand by on whether it leads to the ultimate downfall of Star Citizen. We're also seeing more of a focus on the solo experience that I think will continue. Medical beds have been shared more widely with the Pisces C8R, Medical Ursa, and now the Drake Clipper, miniaturizing the necessary facilities for respawning. I think this will continue with another generalist-focused ship next year, and likely some more convenient medbed places like we've been seeing at different contract locations. With the introduction of resources for respawn, I think we'll see some experimentation. And speaking of contracts, did you know there is a new contracts manager in the works that will likely help players more clearly understand what they can and should do and why, hopefully filtering out missions and allowing us to more easily view what we are actually looking for is on the menu. The devs have been mentioning it for quite some time, and it has shown up in a monthly report or two, so we know it's in the works. Probably part of the major UI overhaul, still struggling with the leftovers of the Flash graphics system. Yeah, that Flash. I do believe we could see this new contract manager this year because genuinely I think we can't go another year without it, so keep an eye out for some possible UI updates. And then there's Squadron 42. I know, a bit of a cop-out when talking about single players as it's a whole separate game, but it is a very important part of the early Star Citizen experience for a lot of people. This is going to be the first place many people hear and learn about Star Citizen. Its release will solidify for many what CIG is capable in game development. It's going to tell a single-player story that is more accessible and kind of the perfect on-ramp to the Star Citizen MMO. And it's also a large part of the funding for continued Star Citizen's development. There is a lot riding on the release of this game. For as important as it might be to a new solo-focused player, it's also of paramount importance to CIG. Chris Roberts says they have a short marketing campaign planned because so much footage is already out, but it is risky. That footage is older, and word of mouth is everything these days. Releasing something new can make a big difference in the new year. This is a big one for them, and we'll talk a lot more about it in another video. So, at the end of 2026, we're going to look back and see if Squadron 42 released, and if it did it act as a strong representation of what players can get from Star Citizen? And I mean that in a positive way. But we're also going to look and see if Star Citizen looked out for the starters and the solo players, those getting onboarded. Because things like FPS scanning, better narratives, more accessible gameplay, instancing, and of course Squadron 42 are going to be pretty key to the success of Star Citizen in 2026. Then there's the MMO side of this MMO. I'm talking about being able to run into a player in the space station and ask if they would like to join you in their ship without the rest of the server knowing. I'm talking about CIG back in the day telling us to use global chat to ask people for help with refueling.
So if you run out of fuel, you ask for someone in chat who owns a Starfarer to come by and refuel you.
I invite anybody to try that. Reliable voice and more categorized text chat are a must this year. CIG is asking players to take part in more and more group gameplay in a wider and wider expanding sandbox environment, and many people would if they knew they had reliable means of communicating with players and knowing who they were getting tangled up with. But outside of that, looking for group channels would also be extremely helpful this year when it comes to things like Siege of Orison, the tactical groups, or even story elements like the Onyx facilities and the new Vanduul smuggling missions. I think we are going to see some movement in social apps, but I'm not sure just how far they'll go. At the very least, I do think text and voice chats will get the update though. Speaking of these large-scale engagements, tactical strike groups are the first raid-like ship-focused gameplay in Star Citizen. requiring capital ships, drop ships, bombers, fighters, and the crew to man all of them. This is not a simple run everyday kind of thing. It'll take a lot of prep and a lot of money. There will be considerable risk and reward and a lot of emphasis on teamwork, filling the necessary roles, and coordination over the course of likely more than an hour. It's a new testing ground for Star Citizen, a new kind of gameplay, and a rarity for gaming in general if you ask me. It'll likely land very unbalanced, but it's good to see them start incorporating these more fleet-focused battles. Along with the larger, less military-focused ships like the Ironclad and Galaxy, it's clear to see that there's more of an emphasis on larger multiplayer environments and ships growing as well. While I am excited for the Javelin, which is probably right around the corner as well, and have enjoyed the Idris and Polaris trips, the larger scale industrial ships we're seeing in development, along with the Pioneer also planned for probably next year, are the real kind of space experience that I've really been waiting for. I'm also hopeful that with the advancements in dynamic server meshing, which is a requirement for instances, which are one of the more important deliveries of the year, we could see player counts expand as well. We've gone from 25 to 50 to 100 up to 700 people in an instance. I'm hopeful that by the end of this year, we'll see more than 1,000 players spread out across the 3 systems. At the end of 2026, we'll be looking back to see if players feel more connected, if Star Citizen feels like it took a step closer to being an actual connected MMO, and if large-scale space gameplay is having a good time. At the end of 2024, I said that CIG was restructuring for the future of Star Citizen's development. In 2025, we saw the persistent universe begin restructuring to reflect that and turn more towards a game. In 2026, we see if it can now bounce back to the iterative development it chased before all this restructuring, while maintaining these newfound benefits. As 2026 opens up, it is looking like we're in for more fast-paced feature deliveries akin to the pre-4.0 days of tech demo testing fun. But this time, it's with the promise of a more playable live build, regular usage of the preview channel to stabilize features before they enter the live build, a CTO who cares immensely about the player experience, and a company that knows it's going to be under a magnifying glass from now on. The bar is set with $150 million in funding last year. Tensions are high with Squadron 42 set to release and potentially decide Star Citizen's fate later this year. Expectations are high with a return to feature deliveries headlined by instancing, crafting, inventory, and item recovery. And everything is kinda riding on the persistent universe continuing to run better and better as time goes on, fixing problems, balancing issues, and developing the systems in flux. 2026 is a pressure cooker, but it is what it is. Squadron 42 has to come out. The PU needs to get crucial features added, and players have to get a stable environment to enjoy if CIG wants to keep making enough money to fund Squadron 42's launch. Another year ticks by, and CIG is in another tough situation, but they've managed it so far, and what they are building continues to impress and inspire. So by the end of this year, we'll look back and see if this risky play was a success, and hopefully that Squadron 42 is having a good time. Either way, this has been your exhaustive look into the major likely additions of 2026. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next.